BTW, FYI. Visit Nexplanon.com RN to learn about Nexplanon. It's an gestural implant, 68 milligrams radiopaque. Or ask your HCP IRL. Okay, TTYL.
Hey guys, have you heard of Goldbelly? It's this amazing site where they ship the most iconic, famous foods from restaurants across the country, anywhere, nationwide. I've never found a more perfect gift than food. They ship Chicago deep dish pizza, New York bagels, Maine lobster rolls, and even Ina Garten's famous cakes. So if you're looking for a gift for the food lover in your life, head to goldbelly.com and get 20% off your first order with promo code GIFT.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations.
All episodes of A Trial by Podcast are for informational and entertainment purposes only. Much to their parents' dismay, neither host is a lawyer, journalist, or investigator. Just two people with microphones and Wi-Fi. All actions discussed are alleged, and all parties are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. For the full legal mumbo-jumbo, check the show notes.
Are we live?
I think we're live. Yep. I'm Kelsey.
And I'm Emily.
And this is A Trial by Podcast. Okay. Hello, everybody.
Hello, I'm back.
She's back after 2 weeks. Yeah. I know you guys missed her. Emily, how's the ankle feeling?
It's feeling, I'd give it like a B.
A B?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll take it.
We're on the mend. We're still on the mend.
It's better than a C.
Yeah, very.
What did it start at? An F?
Oh, it started at like a 3% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oof.
Yeah.
Oof. Well, we're glad Emily's feeling better. She's back. I know you guys were probably worried after 2 weeks, like what happened, but it's all good. She was just on vacation. Okay, Biz Nasty. I started putting a list in my phone of Biz Nasty, so I don't keep forgetting. So first piece of Biz Nasty today is that our merch is on sale. So from today, right now, our merch is on sale. It's 15% off. So today is March 4th, and the sale is going to end March 8th. So it's Tuesday through Saturday this week, 15% off all of our merch. We don't do a ton of sales because the way that we do our merch is we have a third-party company that prints everything on demand. It makes it a lot easier for us. I don't think merch would be possible otherwise. So we cannot control the sales that they run. We can change the dates a little bit, but we can't just pick our own sales and run them whenever we want. So if you've been looking for merch, you're looking for something nice, this is the time. 15% off. You can find the link to the merch in our show notes, which is just like the episode description. It's also on our website, atrialbypodcast.com. You'll see a link at the top left corner that says merch store. It's going to take you to a third-party website, but that is us. We are eventually going to integrate it right into our own website, but haven't had the time yet. So go ahead and check that out. I know that another sale will be coming up in just a few weeks here. Actually, it's not really a sale. It's just going to be free shipping in the US. But I think the 15% off is definitely a better discount. We've got basic stuff that just has the podcast logo. And then we've got like a fun design that says, give me a reason, and I'll put all this true crime knowledge to use. And it's like a skull on fire. Okay, so we made it nice and fun. Go check it out. 15% off till Saturday. So now's the time if you've been looking for something. Oh, quick update. And if you follow us on Instagram, you literally saw this like 3 weeks ago. I posted about it. But if you don't follow us on Instagram, I wanted to let you guys know too that Allison Botha. So we covered her story. I don't remember what episode numbers it was, but I think it was 2 parts. No, it was 1 part. And she's the one who was from South Africa. She was kidnapped. She was raped. She was stabbed over 50 times. She was nearly decapitated. She was disemboweled, and she survived it all.
That's still so fucking crazy to me.
It is so insane. And when we had recorded the episode, I mentioned at the end that the 2 guys who did it to her, Franz Dutoy and Tiens Kruger, they had been released on parole in, I believe it was July of 2023. And me and Emily were kind of just lamenting about how the fuck, why were they released and all of that. And I have great news because their parole has been revoked. And
love to hear it.
Love to hear it. So I don't really know. I've never heard of parole being revoked like that before. I don't really know what's going to happen, but I'm keeping an eye on the news. If you see anything, send us a DM about it. But I will try my best to keep you guys updated on the situation. But that is great news. The other great true crime news that has been making its way around the airwaves is that the death of Ellen Greenberg, and I know you're like, Kelsey, that's the episode title. Yes, it is. That's why we're covering it at this time, is because there's big news in the case, and I'm about to spoil it for you right from the beginning. So Ellen Greenberg's death was ruled a suicide, and I'm going to give you a lot of reasons why that is very highly debated, I guess, whether or not this was a suicide or a murder. And basically, the medical examiner who had ruled it a suicide just released a statement saying that he no longer believes it should be ruled as a suicide. So they are reopening the investigation, at least to determine what the manner of death was, which it could be ruled a homicide or it could be ruled undetermined. So again, we're going to have to keep you guys updated on this case because it's playing out right now. But this is a case that's always been high on my list to cover. So when I saw that come out, I'm like, now's the time. This one really, really bothers me. And I think it's really going to bother you too. So with that being said, today, I am going to tell you the story of the death of 27-year-old Ellen Ray Greenberg, who was found dead in her Philadelphia apartment in 2011 with 20 stab wounds, including several to the back of her neck and head. Now, initially ruled a homicide, her death was later changed to suicide, despite the unusual circumstances of her injuries. So this is really what's led to widespread skepticism about her manner of death. Now,
wait, that's crazy. So they originally ruled it homicide, and then they're like, oh, wait, no, I think it's suicide. And now again, they're going to be like, oh, no, it's actually homicide again.
Yes, and we're going to explain how and why that happened. But basically, the medical examiner was given new information by police after he had already ruled it a homicide. Then he gets this new information, and with that new information, he had decided that it must have been a suicide.
Okay.
And the medical examiner is supposed to take the circumstances into account when determining the manner of death. They're not just looking at the body alone. Okay. So we're going to get into all of the details. I tried to keep it down. I'm trying to keep it down to 2 parts. So I'm sure not every single point we're going to touch on, but we're going to go through how the fuck this happened, because it is a really, really crazy story. Now, Ellen's parents and forensic experts argue that the wounds and the crime scene suggest foul play, while authorities maintained for the past 14 years, that the evidence supports suicide, fueling an ongoing legal and public battle over the true cause of her death. And like I said, just recently, so in 2025, the medical examiner released that statement admitting that he believes that Ellen's death should not be ruled a suicide. So really what we're going to try and cover over the next 2 episodes is what happened and what do we think comes next? So there's going to be opinions inserted into this. And with that being said, I want to be clear and upfront. I personally do not believe that this was a suicide. That's just my opinion. I think it's possible. It's not one of those things where it's like, here's this damning
Like cut and
piece
dry.
of evidence where this is absolutely impossible that this is a suicide. But I think it is so unlikely. And I want to just give you that information up front because I think I have a little bit of a bias. While I covered this case, I tried to be as unbiased as possible. And I'm trying to present an unbiased storyline and present both sides to you guys. But I just wanted to be open and upfront. Like, I have a very strong opinion on this case. And I think I think a lot of you are going to too, once you hear the story. Or a lot of you who are like really, really into true crime, you probably already have a strong opinion on this. So with that being said, we've already talked about suicide a bit here, but I want to give that trigger warning. We are going to talk a lot about suicide over the next 2 episodes. So if you are struggling with suicidal thoughts or ideation, I personally suggest that you skip these episodes for now. Talk to somebody, seek out help. You can always come back to these episodes later. It's just probably not a good time for you to listen because it's not going to be brief mentions of suicide. We are going to be talking about it for a long, long time. So you can, if you're looking for help, you can call or text or chat the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. So it's just 988 in the U.S. Super simple. If you are not in the U.S., please, we always say, give it a Goog. Give it a Goog. There is a hotline and some form of help wherever you are. So you can find that online. So I think I did all my warnings. Let's get into the story. So on the morning of January 26, 2011, 27-year-old Ellen Ray Greenberg spoke on the phone with her mom, Sandy, before she headed into work. They ended their call by telling each other, "I love you," and then went about their days as usual. Ellen was a first grade teacher at, I have no idea, I didn't look this up. Sorry, guys, you're going to yell at me. 2 sentences in. But
Off to a rough start. And my voice is already all raspy, so by the end of this, it's going to be rough. But she was a teacher at Juniata. That's all I got. That's the best I got. Juniata. Juniata Park Academy in Philadelphia. And she would normally be at work until mid-afternoon, just like any teacher. But that day, there was a massive snowstorm that hit Philadelphia, so the school let out early around 1:15. After leaving work, Ellen stopped at a gas station on her way home and filled up her tank before heading back to the apartment she shared with her fiancé, Sam Goldberg. So this is the Venice Loft Apartments in Philly, obviously. Now, Sam and Ellen had been together for about 4 years. They met in 2007 through a mutual friend, and 3 years later, in 2010, Sam got down on one knee on a California beach and asked Ellen to spend the rest of her life with him, which Ellen excitedly agreed to. So, besides Ellen getting home a little early, all seemed normal for the couple that day. Around 4:45 p.m., Sam left the apartment and headed down to the gym that was located within the apartment complex. I believe it was just on the basement floor of their building. He worked out for about 35 to 45 minutes, depending on the source. And then around 5:30 p.m., he headed back up to the 6th floor where their unit was located. When he arrived, however, he found that the bar lock was engaged on the door. I'm calling it a bar lock. It's not really a lock. It is basically when you go to a hotel, there's like that extra little security bar that you like
flip.
the latch. Okay.
It's like a latch. Bar latch is kind of a better way to say it.
Okay.
And if you cannot picture what I'm talking about, there's going to be a picture of it on our Instagram. So follow us at A Trial by Podcast or just Google it. But it's basically you flip that little bar. It's common in hotels. So he goes up. He unlocks the door, goes to open it, and it opens a couple of inches because that bar lock is engaged, bar latch, and that stops the door from opening more than a few inches. And
he's confused because he just went down to the gym. Why would Ellen latch this door? He was going to be back.
Yeah.
So between 5:30 and 5:42 p.m., Sam is just calling and texting Ellen, trying to get her to open the door. And the text messages read as follow. And these are all like separate messages. He said, "Hello, open the door. What are you doing? I'm getting pissed. Hello, you better have an excuse. What the fuck? Ah, you have no idea."
Ooh.
Yeah.
It started as like, that's how I would react, but then it went like pretty. Like,
For me, the two that I would be saying, I'm getting pissed and what the fuck.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. You better have an excuse
yeah, that one
is weird because it's like, it implies or else.
Yeah, red flag.
That's the implication I get from that. And then the same with, you have no idea. That is an odd thing to say to me. Even if you're pissed off, I would be pissed off.
Yeah, like you have no idea what I'm going to fucking do when you open this door.
Yes,
Like,
that's what a lot of people think this is implying. And of course, we can't read Sam's mind, so we don't know. But to me, it's strange.
Yeah.
Now, at some point, Sam goes down to the lobby of the building and he asks the security guard on duty, who was a man named Phil Hanton, if Phil would come upstairs with him and help him break the lock, break the latch. And Phil said, no, that's against company policy to damage the property. Like, I'm not doing that. I'm going to get in trouble for that.
Yeah.
And so Sam asks him, he's like, well, do you think should I do it? And whatever. And he's like,
well, it's my door. Should I, am I allowed to do that?
Right. And Phil tells him, he goes, well, no, you probably shouldn't. But if you do, I mean, you're going to have to pay for any damage you cause, is basically what Phil tells him.
Okay.
So Sam then headed back upstairs to keep trying to get Ellen to open the door. And then just before 6 p.m., Sam called his cousin, who was named Camion Schwartzman. Now, Sam and Camion claimed that Sam was calling to let him know that he was locked out and couldn't get a hold of Ellen. They say that Camion suggested asking the doorman for help. So it depends on whose account and who you're talking to. Some people say that Sam went back downstairs and asked Phil again for help after this phone call. Mm-hmm. But some accounts say he just went and talked to him once. And I cannot figure out which one is the truth. I found some interviews with Phil Hanton, and we're going to get to what he says happened, but he does not clarify whether or not he talked to Sam more than once that night.
Okay.
So according to Sam's initial story, as recorded by the first responding officers on the scene, Phil Hanton ended up coming upstairs with him, but refused to break down the door because it would damage the property. So Sam then broke the door open himself. Now, Phil Hanton, in these interviews, later denies this claim, saying that he refused Sam immediately and he did not go upstairs with Sam at any point.
Yeah, he's like, I told him I was going to lose my job, so I said...
Right, and there's security footage of him in the lobby, so we know that he did not go upstairs with Sam at any point.
Weird.
And here's the thing I want to be very clear about this. The police report recorded it this way, saying that the security guard came upstairs with Sam and he was present while the door was being broken in. However, it's not explicitly stated that Sam told them this. And a lot of the times when I hear this case covered, they always say, well, Sam said. Mm-hmm. And it is possible, and I think somewhat likely, that Sam was the one that told them this.
Yeah.
But we don't have evidence to prove that fact. It is possible. Sam's attorney says that the police officer just recorded the account wrong and that Sam never lied about it. So just something to think about.
This episode is brought to you by Peacock. The new Peacock original documentary, Matthew Perry, A Hollywood Tragedy, dives deep into the beloved actor's rise to fame and his tragic death. 5 people, including Perry's personal assistant, 2 medical doctors, and an alleged Hollywood drug dealer known as the Ketamine Queen, were charged with conspiracy to illegally provide Perry with the ketamine. Explore the details of the case in this heartbreaking special, streaming now only on Peacock.
Hey, Hey, what's up? It's Wanda Sykes. I'm here to remind you about something super important, getting your breast screened. Because trust me, your breast health should be a priority. Early detection for breast cancer can change the game, which is why you should visit yourattentionplease.com to learn more. And do me a favor, if you've already had a breast cancer screening, remind your friends and family to visit yourattentionplease.com too. We gotta look out for our girls.
Still getting around to that fix on your car? You got this. On eBay, you'll find millions of parts guaranteed to fit. Doesn't matter if it's a major engine repair or your first time swapping your windshield wipers. eBay has that part you need, ready to click perfectly into place for changes big and small. Loud or quiet, find all the parts you need at prices you'll love. Guaranteed to fit every time. But you already know that. eBay. Things, people, love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
So that's kind of an important point about whether or not someone was with him when this door was open. And we're going to come back to why that misreporting is so important. But for now, it's important that you understand that the first investigators on the scene were operating under the impression that Phil had been with Sam and watched Sam break the door open, basically. Okay? So as they're conducting their investigation, they have that as the truth in their head.
Okay.
I think that's going to help explain a little bit of why the police do what they do in this scenario. Now, because Phil never actually left the lobby and he was not with Sam, it is kind of unclear exactly when Sam broke this lock or broke this latch and was able to get into the apartment. But here's what we know from phone records. So between 6:07 p.m. and 6:10 p.m., Ellen's phone records show 3 missed calls from the Venice Loft Apartments. And this was Phil Hanton trying to help Sam get a hold of Ellen. At 6:14, Sam receives a call. It is unclear whether this call comes from Camian's phone or Camian's father's phone. But either way, the two were together, okay? So Sam had talked to Camian. They get off the phone. We don't really know. It's kind of unclear what happened. And then Sam receives a call from them, and it's both his uncle and his cousin. They're together in person, and they're talking on the phone with Sam.
Okay.
So it's on this phone call with Camian and Camian's father, James. They say that they tell Sam to call 911 at this point. They're like, something's weird. Why wouldn't she be opening the door? Call 911. Now, 2 minutes later, Sam is seen on surveillance footage getting back in the elevator to go upstairs. Now, Camian, James, and Sam all claim that they were still on the phone together at 6:29 when Sam broke the door open. So they're saying, okay, we weren't there to watch him break this door open, but we were on the phone with him while he did it. We know when he broke this door open, okay? However...
But he never called the cops, right? Because he was on the phone with them the whole time.
He does call the cops. We're going to get to that.
Okay.
But the timing of all of this is very suspicious in my mind, okay?
Okay.
So they said he broke the door open around 6:29 p.m. and they were on the phone with him while he did it.
Okay.
However, according to reporting by Thomas Lake for CNN, this claim is contradicted by the evidence. Lake wrote, quote, Sam told the police that he forced the door open at 6:29 p.m., but the phone records and surveillance video indicate that he was not on the phone with the Schwartzmans or anyone else at that time, end quote. When he called James and Camian's attorney, so this is when the reporter called the attorney to ask about this discrepancy, the attorney couldn't explain it and just told Lake, quote, they stick by the story, end quote. Interesting.
Very.
I wouldn't hire that attorney after hearing that. That's just me, though. Now, in fact, the second call between Camian and James and Sam, so the first call was just Camian on the phone. Second call, it's both of them. This second call only lasted 1 minute and 12 seconds, meaning that the call had been over for about 2 minutes before that door was forced open, because they said the door was forced open at 6:29, but phone records showed that the call had ended before 6:29. So you couldn't, if the door was forced open at that time, you couldn't have been on the phone with him.
Yeah.
Records prove that. Now, inside the apartment, once he did get this door open, we don't know exactly when that is, he finds Ellen bloodied and leaning against the kitchen cabinets, like in between the corner cabinets, sitting on the ground.
Okay.
At 6:33, Sam calls 911. Now, I'm going to play the 911 call audio for you. It is about 5 minutes long, so just be prepared. It's a little bit of a long clip, but I'm not going to speed it up because last time I sped it up, everybody complained. Everybody was like DMing and emailing us like,
They're like, we can't fucking hear it.
Well, because some people listen on 1.5 speed, which is so
it's like
crazy. I cannot believe you guys do that. That would stress me out. But so then it was going like 3 times speed, basically.
Yeah.
So I'm going to play this for you. Here we go.
Help! I need a emergency now. I just walked to my apartment. My fiance's on the floor with blood everywhere.
What is the address?
Please come, help!
Is this a house or apartment?
Oh no! Oh no! It's an apartment.
What apartment number?
Please hurry, please.
Where is she bleeding from?
I don't know. I can't tell.
No, sir, you have to calm yourself down in order to get you some help.
I'm sorry. I don't know. I'm looking at her right now. I can't see anything. There's nothing broken. She's bleeding. Ellie!
You don't know where she's bleeding from? Can't tell
Ellie!
where the blood's coming from?
I think her head. I think she hit her head, But it's everywhere.
Okay, sir,
it's everywhere.
Think she might have fallen? Do you know what happened?
She may have slipped. There's blood on the table. Her face is a little purple.
Okay, hold on for rescue for her. Stay on the phone.
Philadelphia Fire Department 842. What's the address?
Please hurry. Yes.
What's wrong?
I went downstairs to go work out. I came back up. The door was latched. My fiance's inside. She wasn't answering. So after about a half hour, I decided to break it down. I see her now, just on the floor with blood. She's not responding.
Okay, is she breathing? Look at her chest. I need you to calm down, and I need you to look at her chest. It's really.
I really don't think she is.
Listen to me. Someone's on the way. Look at her chest. Is she flat on her back?
She's on her back. So I bring her.
Look at her chest and tell me if it's going up and down, up and down.
I don't see her moving.
Okay. Do you know how to do CPR?
I don't.
Okay, I can tell you what to do. Okay, until they get there. I want you to keep her flat on her.
God.
Hello.
Yeah, hi, okay.
Are you willing to do CPR with me over the phone until they get there?
I have to, right?
Okay, so get her flat on her back, bare her chest, okay? You want to rip her shirt off.
Oh, shit.
Okay? You need to kneel down by her side.
Oh, my God. Ellie, please.
Listen, you can't freak out, sir, because you
Okay, I'm trying not to. Her shirt won't come off. It's a zipper. Oh, my God. She stabbed herself.
Where?
She fell with a knife. Oh, no, her knife's sticking out.
Her what?
There's a knife sticking out of her heart.
Oh, she stabbed herself?
I guess so. I don't know where she fell on it. I don't know.
Okay, well, don't touch it.
Okay, so I just let her down here now. I mean, what do I do?
No, I mean, you can't. If the knife is in her chest, it's going to be kind of hard for you to do CPR at this time.
Oh, no. Oh, my goodness. Okay.
Police, which operator?
277.
Is someone coming here?
Yes, they are. You said right?
Yes.
Okay, someone's on the way. And the knife is still inside?
Wait, so what?
The knife is still inside of her?
Yes, I didn't take it out.
Was it her chest or what area?
It's in her chest. It looks like it's right in her heart.
Okay, someone's on the way out there. Okay, just get.
Oh my God! Okay.
How old is she?
She's 27.
27, and there's no sign of life at all.
No, please don't be. What?
Pinch her under her arm and tell me if she responds to pain.
Ellie. She's not. Her arm, her hands are still warm. I don't know if that means, but there's blood everywhere.
I know, but you can't, and the knife is still inside of her. How far? Can you see how far it went in?
It looks pretty deep.
Okay.
It looks straight, and it's a long knife.
Don't touch anything.
Yeah, don't touch anything. Okay.
I'm not touching anything. This is I can't believe this, though.
So wait, it was just you there with her?
We're the only ones here.
And she ran in the door, you said latched it shut?
No, I went downstairs to work out, and when I came back up, the door was latched. Like it was, it wasn't like it was, it was like locked from the inside, and I'm yelling, and I'm
was
yelling.
your house broken into?
No.
So there's no sign of a break-in?
No sign of a break-in at all. I mean, there will be when you get here, because I had to break the latch, but to get in.
Okay. And this is a house, right?
It's an apartment. Apartment.
Okay, that'll help. Apartment.
God, oh my God. All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Bye.
That's fucking wild. Why does he sound so calm? The switch up was so quick when she's like, "You need to calm down." He goes, "Okay, yeah, what do you need?" Like, what the fuck? He's like, goes from hysterical, or I should say, acting hysterical, to the lady being like, "All right, you need to calm the fuck down." And he's like, "Okay, what do you need from me?"
That's okay. I want to preface everything we're about to fucking lay into with the fact that everybody reacts differently. Sometimes some people are very calm in the most horrific situations possible. That does happen. But I think there are so many weird things about this phone call, and each one of them alone is very compelling. But when you add them all up together, I just think this phone call is like sets off alarm bells for me.
Yeah.
Like,
so many. Like, where do I even fucking start?
So many. Don't worry. We're going to break it down
Yeah,
bit
let's
by
do
bit.
it. Let's fucking do it.
So, first of all, when he calls, at some point, pretty early on in the call, he says, "There's blood everywhere."
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you look at the crime scene photos, there is not, in my opinion, I wouldn't have said, "Oh, there's blood everywhere." There is a lot of blood. Like, more so, a lot of blood compared to like if you just cut yourself or something like that. But like not as much blood as you would expect because she had 20 stab wounds.
Yeah.
I would picture literally blood everywhere. There are like small pools of blood, and we're going to post the pictures on our Instagram and Facebook. Don't worry, I'll put like a warning or something ahead of it, but she's not in the photo. It's just afterwards. Like, just because I think that this is, to me, a compelling point that like
the difference.
It's just like weird. Like, and this is all subjective though. You might look at it and say that looks like a lot of blood, or someone who's not in a true crime that finds that you might think that's a lot of blood. Like, I'm thinking relative to scenes where there are 20 stab wounds.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you don't have a picture in your mind of like what that might look like, and obviously he says he doesn't know, like he didn't know that there were 20 stab wounds. It's not like he sat there and counted.
Well, yeah, he didn't even see the fucking knife still stuck in her.
Yeah,
like,
we're going to get to that. We are going to get to that. And I just, it didn't look like enough blood for her to have died from bleeding out, in my opinion. Like, I was shocked by how little blood there was, but that's just me.
Interesting.
So I don't know. I want you guys, you can find the pictures online too if you search, if you don't want to follow us on Facebook or Instagram for some reason.
That, and this might be a stretch, but like he said that her hands were still warm. Doesn't that mean you're like that blood is still pumping through you if your hands are still warm?
Well, it would take time for your body to cool down, but it implies that this just happened.
Yeah.
It hasn't been, hours or anything like that.
Okay.
Which is interesting because that really fits his theory that it just happened within that 45-minute window.
Maybe just fell on a fucking knife 20 times.
Well, that's what's crazy. Okay.
Yeah.
Don't get too many.
I was going to say, I think I'm getting ahead of myself.
No, you're good. But I'm going to go through all of the stab wounds because it might kind of change your perception on that.
Okay.
We're not going to go through it quite yet. We're going to get through the call first, and then we'll talk about the autopsy. But I guess let me just give you a prelude to this is a lot of these stab wounds are very small and not very deep, like a few centimeters deep.
Okay.
So they're like, when you see it, it's more like nicks.
Okay.
And then there are a few that are very, very deep. And of course, the knife is found sticking out of her chest and the blade is entirely in. Now, this knife was a normal steak knife that you would have in your knife block at home that you would eat your steak dinner with. Okay. So it's not this massive knife. It was a serrated edge, but nothing but the handle was sticking out when it was in, when she was found.
Ooh, that's
so
deep.
At one point, the operator asked Sam if she is flat on her back and to look and see if she's breathing. She's like, is she flat on her back? Like, look and see if she's breathing. Is her chest moving up and down? And Sam says yes, but he doesn't see her moving. However, Ellen was not found flat on her back. She was found sitting on the ground, leaning against the cabinets. So she was
like
not
the
laying
little corner
on the ground.
crevice, right?
Yeah, like in the corner of the cabinets, she's kind of like perched between them.
Yeah.
So why would you lie and say that she was laying on the ground? Why wouldn't you say, no, she's sitting. Should I move
Like
her?
she's sitting up, yeah.
He says, yeah, she is, but she's not moving. That is fucking weird to me.
Yeah.
That is weird because your natural reaction would just be like, no,
Yeah.
she's not. So when the operator asked Sam if he knows how to do CPR, he says he doesn't, which Emily literally made I took a video of Emily's faces during this 911 call because I saw the first one and I was like,
The
oh.
blasphemy.
But like, who doesn't know how to do CPR at like a grown man?
I think my face was more at the fact that he like did not even like offer to be like, I don't like walk me through it. Like I don't
He
even
just
know
says,
where
no,
to
I
start.
don't.
Yeah, he's like, no,
I don't.
can't do that.
And
she's like, well, all right, buckle up. We're gonna walk you through it.
I understand that, like, I don't know that I know the exact like number of I know you're supposed to do between, and don't take this advice because this is me telling you I don't know the details, okay? So don't listen to me. Go look it up. But I'm pretty sure it's like what 20 to 25 compressions and then you're going to do like a
30,
few breaths.
But yeah.
But we know you would know enough to try.
Yeah.
And then you might
The
ask
general
them, can you
idea, yeah.
how many times? Or you
Yeah.
might ask specific questions.
Yeah.
But to just say no, I don't, and not ask any questions.
Or like help me do that. Like, yeah, that's
I just found that so odd.
yeah, me too.
So after he says, no, I don't, the operator then asks him if he's willing to do CPR over the phone if she walks him through it.
He goes, well, I guess I gotta have to.
Well, that's what Sam's response was. I have to, right? I have to, right?
Yeah,
mean,
like what?
Who says that?
Yeah, your fiance is literally like fucking has a knife sticking out of her. And you're like, well, I mean, I guess I have to, don't I? Like, that's weird. I don't like that answer. No.
I don't like it either. And I didn't even write this in my list because, again, like digging into someone's tone of voice or how calm they are and stuff, I think is
that's a stretch.
It's a stretch sometimes. But overall, like, he just sounds like a bad actor to me. Like and that's just my impression. And I'm not saying that he is lying or that he did this or anything, but it just, the way he's like yelling her name, he's Ellie. Like, it sounds like if you were to ask someone who's just a normal average person to be like, read this script. Like, and he's kind of like raising his voice and yelling to Ellie, which I guess maybe you would do, even though you're right next to her, but it's just odd.
Watch the world's biggest tennis stars clash in the California desert at the BNP Paribas Open, live on Tennis Channel.
How do they get to these shots?
Tune in daily for exclusive first ball to last coverage from Indian Wells and witness all of the jaw-dropping action as the game's top men and women square off at one of the greatest events in sports. It's tennis magic you need to see to believe. The BNP Paribas Open, live on Tennis Channel and streaming on the Tennis Channel app.
Support comes from ServiceNow. We're for people doing the creative work they actually want to do. That's why this ad was written and read by a real person and not AI. You know what people don't want to do? Boring, busy work. Now with AI agents built into the ServiceNow platform, you can automate millions of repetitive tasks in every corner of your business, IT, HR, and more, so your people can focus on the work that they want to do. That's putting AI agents to work for people. It's your turn. Visit servicenow.com.
So then he's going along with it as he's doing CPR. So she's explaining to him how to do the CPR. And he's going along with it as if he's trying, and he's saying her name and whatever. But again, I remind you, when the police got there, she was sitting up. She was not lying down. So there's no way.
He couldn't have even like attempted unless he like weirdly put her back. Like,
well, that's the thing is unless he put her back.
Yeah.
Because we're going to get to the blood spatter evidence suggests the fact that that's the position she was in when she was being stabbed, because there was a lot of blood like on her pants on her upper legs and none on like her lower legs. And there was way more blood on her pants than on the floor, which suggests that she was
like,
sitting down,
down,
kind of leaning over her legs when a lot of these wounds occurred. So I think she was like that when she died. She was in that position. So if he was following the instructions and he said she was laying on the flat on the ground, then he must have put her back. But he says he didn't.
But he is saying that he did try to do CPR.
From the 911 call, he made it sound like he was going along with it.
But nobody was like, did you actually do CPR?
Now, here's the thing. I'm sure I would hope that question was asked. But basically, the way it works in Philadelphia is we can't get access to the police records on. So, like when we covered the Dan Markel case, there were tons of interviews with Wendy Adelson. Florida has like I believe it's the Sunshine Laws, basically where everything is available to the public in these investigations. Philadelphia doesn't do that. Or sorry, not Philadelphia. Pennsylvania in general does not do that. They don't just release. So Sam was interviewed by police this evening, but we have no access. We have no idea what happened during that interview.
Ooh.
Because that's all locked up. It's not public. So
really wish it wasn't.
So we don't know what Sam claims about this or if he was even asked about it or not. But it's just, why would you say she was lying on her back? Why would you say, no, she's not, like her chest isn't moving up and down when she was not lying on her back? That is so odd to me.
Yeah.
Then the person was basically instructing him to take her shirt off. Like, you're supposed to do it on bare skin, which I didn't know that actually. So you learn something new every day. But you're supposed to do CPR on bare skin. So she's telling Sam to take Ellen's shirt off. And as he's saying he's going to, following these instructions, this is when he finds the knife sticking out of her chest. And he's like, oh my God, she stabbed herself.
She fell on the knife.
Well, the operator asks Sam where she stabbed herself, and Sam responds, or she fell on the knife. I don't know. Her knife is sticking out. There's a knife sticking out of her heart, end quote. This, first of all, very specific to say that it's sticking out of her heart, because if you don't even know how to give CPR, like how do you know that the
like
exact position? Yeah. Besides that it's in like the upper, left chest cavity. It just is specific. Again, I'm being very nitpicky. This could mean nothing.
What are the fucking odds that somebody falls on a knife?
Why? Thank you. Exactly. Because what?
Like that
why
came
would that
straight
be
out
your
of left
first
field.
thought?
Yeah,
Like,
that's what I'm saying. Like, what the fuck?
That's a possible. And it would be one thing if it was in her leg or in her side or something.
like a weird
but like
position.
How did she just fall directly on a knife to the heart? Like,
why? How does that even happen and be sitting how she was? Like,
and how did you? Why did that even come to your mind? That is such a
that's
weird.
what I'm like. That straight out of left field, dude. He pulled that right out of his ass.
So there's and I want to give you kind of info on what someone else said about this. So there's a prosecutor for the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office named Guy DeAndrea, and he was talking to CNN about this part of the call, and he said, quote, I'm going to go on a limb and say 100 out of 100 people wouldn't have in their top 10 ways that could have occurred, someone would have fallen on that knife, end quote.
And that made me laugh. It's like, no one, if you were like, what are the top 10 ways this could have happened? I don't think anyone would say.
Yeah, like,
that
has
she
he
fell
seen an
onto
episode too many of, like, Strange Way to Die or something?
Yeah.
Like,
seriously. It's just so odd. And what's odd to me is if I found that scene, you know what my first thought would be? Is that someone stabbed her.
Yeah, same. I'd be like, who the fuck is here? First of all, with the lock, too, the fact that he had to break in, you know? That didn't set off any, like, fucking red flags for you, sir? That maybe somebody else did this?
Right. And even if...
And this is your fiance. Like, what the fuck?
Even if she did do this to herself and he doesn't see all these other stab wounds because a lot of them are very small and she has clothes on, so they're covered up. I just don't understand. Like, my first thought would be like, someone fucking stabbed her. Like, and I would be scared. Like, are they still in the apartment? Like, what happened? Like, or if you, like, let's say he, for some reason, felt like, oh, like she was suicidal and she maybe did this to herself. How do you, even if suicide is your first thought, how do you skip from suicide to she fell on the knife without hitting, maybe someone else did this to her?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's
well, that
so
and he
weird.
was like immediately no when she said, is anybody else there? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He was like, no.
Exactly. It's just, this whole phone call gives me the fucking heebie-jeebies.
Yeah, I don't like it.
Now, at one point, the operator tells Sam not to touch the knife. Once he says that there's a knife stuck in her chest, she tells him, don't touch the knife, don't do CPR. To which Sam responds, oh my goodness, okay. And like the way he said the oh my goodness, like rewind after we're finished talking about this call and play it again if you want. I'm not going to add another 5 minutes. But like the way he says, oh my goodness, it's just... it gives me the heebie-jeebies. Again, this is not evidence that points to him having anything to do with this. I'm just saying, to me, it sounds weird.
Yeah, these were just like ringing our red flag bells.
One other thing that people point out about this call, which I didn't really notice when I first listened to it, because I tried to listen to it. You know, I had already heard about the case. So I already knew some of the stuff people said. But before I really investigated what other people said, I'm like trying to listen to it just by myself and give my own thoughts, I guess. But what other people say about this is that by the end of the call, Sam is already like, he's explaining this situation from his perspective and he's already almost establishing this alibi. He's like, well, I was at the gym and then I came back and the door was locked and then I had to break it in and blah, 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 blah. And so
and she's like, well, is there any sign of forced entry? And he's like, well, no, but there will be because I had to break in.
Right, which is, I personally understand that explanation because she asked a specific direct question. But some people say, like, why is he giving all this backstory? Like, why would he go all the way back to how he left to go to the gym, you know, almost 2 hours ago now?
Yeah.
Like, if she's asking what happened, why wouldn't you just say, I don't know, I came in and she was just like this.
Yeah.
And I don't know. That one doesn't, I wasn't really bothered by that.
Me either.
Because I think you're also trying to go through in your head, like, how the fuck did this happen? I was only gone for 2 hours or whatever.
You don't know what really bothered me is when he hung up the phone and he's like, okay, bye. Like he was talking to a friend.
Yeah.
I thought that was weird.
I don't know. I could go on about this for 3 hours straight, this 1 5-minute phone call. Lastly, though, the operator asks if there were signs of a break-in, and Sam tells them no, like immediately. He's just, no, but there will be when you get here because I broke the door in or whatever. If you broke this door in and you find her in the kitchen, because the kitchen is right by the front door, you have not yet gone, and you call 911 immediately, presuming, you have not yet like looked for signs of a break-in. So I understand that you had to break the lockdown, but in my mind, in this frenzied state, I don't think I would be thinking through, well, no, someone couldn't have broken in because it was locked from the inside.
Yeah.
Because that becomes a big part of this case, the fact that the door was locked from the inside.
Yeah, and he immediately went to like suicide.
But I just don't think that my mind, maybe if I had some time to process this, but if I just found her, I call 911 immediately. I have not yet thought through, I'm no longer thinking, I forgot the door was locked.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just feel like it is so odd that he's immediately like, no. Like, why? I feel
how are you so sure that nobody else is there?
I just feel like if it were me and they asked me that question, I'd be like, "Oh fuck, dude, is somebody
I didn't even check. Yeah,
did somebody do this to her?" And then I'd be like, "I don't know. I'd like look around or something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. Again, this could mean nothing. This could be not weird at all. But I'm just trying to put myself in his shoes in that situation. I just feel like I wouldn't already know the answer to that question.
Yeah,
I would have to think about that question.
Mm-hmm.
So." Yeah, I don't know. You guys let us know what your thoughts are on this phone call because I'm sure you guys have thoughts that are different from ours, but I'm really curious. So by 6:36 p.m., first responders were on the scene. However, a few minutes before first responders got there, you know who got there? His cousin, Camion.
And his uncle?
Not his uncle, just his cousin. Now, this is suspicious for multiple reasons to me. First of all, Camion and the uncle later tell, through their attorneys, they claim that they were on the phone with Sam while he broke the door open. So here's the thing. They basically have done the math based on how far Camion lived from the apartment and how long it was going to take for him to get to Sam and Ellen's apartment. And for him to get there before the first responders got there, he would have had to leave his apartment right after he got off the first phone call with Sam. Okay?
So that would have been before he broke the door down.
Before he broke the door down. So remember, there were two phone calls. The first phone call, Sam called Camion. The second phone call, I'm not 100% sure which phone it came from. I would assume it came from Camion's father, James, okay? But James and Camion and Sam all claim that they made that second phone call to Sam. Sam answers, and they are on the phone with him while he breaks the door down. We've already established that based on the phone records and based on what time they said the door was broken down, it doesn't make any sense. But now it extra doesn't make sense because Camion could not have been with James because he was driving to their apartment. So the point is not that this means that they did something or what. The point is
they got conflicting stories for what reason?
They're lying.
Yeah.
So they are lying about something in regards to these phone calls.
Mm-hmm. And now, why? Why would you lie?
I think, and this is my opinion, this is not a fact, I'm just speculating, that they are trying to provide some form of alibi for when that door was broken down. And they say, yes, we were on the phone. We heard Sam breaking that door down because otherwise he has no witness. So was the door ever locked at all? Or did Sam just mess with that latch and make it look like it was broken? And that's what some people believe. Some people believe he flipped that latch and broke the door down.
But if that was true, then why wouldn't he like say that to the fucking 911, the dispatcher, instead of immediately going to like, oh, well, maybe she fell on a knife, you know, like not like an intruder theory.
Well, no. What I'm saying is that some people believe he staged the scene to look like Ellen was inside with the door locked from the inside, meaning no one else could have been in there with Ellen when she died because they couldn't have left the apartment and locked the door.
Yeah.
It had to be locked from the inside. Here's the thing, though. If you look up YouTube videos of these latches, you can easily close these latches from the outside using like string and stuff.
Yeah, or like a wire.
Yeah, it's very simple. So we don't know whether, you could say maybe he closed it with string and then they were on the phone and he's lying to them. We don't know. All we know, and it is possible, maybe it was latched from the inside. Maybe Ellen did latch it and maybe this was all a suicide. But the point is their stories, they're lying about something. We just don't exactly know what that is. Because what they're saying doesn't make sense.
No.
They're either lying or they're like totally misremembering.
Yep.
So again, by 6:36, the first responders were on the scene. Camion is already at the apartment building. And Ellen was found sitting slouched against those 2 corner cabinets, and there was a serrated steak knife stuck in her chest with only the handle sticking out. In her left hand was a white bathroom hand towel, which had no blood on it.
Oh my God, I have so many fucking questions.
This is such a red herring, the white towel, because I think it's weird if she was murdered and it's weird if she committed suicide, that she's holding this towel either way and
With
it never
no
got any blood on it.
Yeah, what?
And I don't see why anyone would even put this towel in her hand afterwards to like stage the scene. It's just weird.
Yeah, like what's that doing there?
But so I think it's kind of a red herring, but I wanted to mention it. Now, Ellen was pronounced dead at 6:42 p.m. And at that point, the scene should have been treated and investigated as a crime scene. But in my opinion, it was not. And I think that's probably every person's opinion on earth. So on the kitchen counter, investigators found a strainer that was filled with blueberries and a freshly sliced orange. Yet the autopsy later showed that Ellen had nothing in her stomach. So if you believe this is a suicide, you believe that Ellen began making herself a snack, and then after preparing the snack, but before eating it, she decided to stab herself to death.
Yeah, like mid preparing a snack, you're like, I'm over it. I'm done.
Right.
Now's my time to go.
It's
weird.
Another argument that people make about why this is not a suicide is she had gotten gas on her way home that day. She had filled up her tank. And she had also, I don't know if it was that day, believe it was that day, she was preparing save the dates for their wedding. And so people are saying, oh, she's planning for the future.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of evidence out there that people who end up committing suicide, they are planning for the future. They do those types of things. But when you get to the point where she has made herself a snack, and then in the middle of this snack, before even having a bite of it, she just decides to, now's the moment. Even if you're like, I don't know, I could see where maybe you're looking at the knife or something, but wouldn't you, and maybe I'm just too obsessed with the food, but like when you eat the snack first and then like this is my last meal type of thing.
Yeah.
She had no food in her stomach. Like I don't think she had eaten all day. So it's just, I think it's so weird. I just can't imagine any scenario. Like why in the middle? Why did you even start preparing the snack at that point if you weren't going to eat it and you were just going to take your own life?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's just weird.
That's really weird.
Now, they also noted that there were 2 large knives on the counter, and the knife block was turned on its side as if it had been knocked over with enough force for some of the knives to fall out of it.
Almost like somebody like yanked it and then they all just fell over.
You yank the knife out of the knife block, then the knife block tips and it like causes some more knives to fall out.
Este episodio es presentado por Honda. Descubra la nueva Honda Passport Trail Sport Todoterreno. La Passport más todoterreno que Honda haya imaginado jamás. Esta Passport cuenta con mayor altura al suelo, barras de techo en todas sus versiones y neumáticas especialmente diseñados para cualquier terreno. Además, disfruta todos tus viajes con el control de clima de 3 zonas, techo panorámico y opciones como asientos delanteros con calefacción y ventilación. Conoce más en honda.com/passport.
Empower. Claire is practicing her breathing for her upcoming yoga retreat in Bali. Has she ever done yoga before? No. But Claire worked with Empower on her savings and investment strategy. She got good at money, so she can be a little bad. Empower. Invest well, live a little. Join our 19 million customers today at empower.com.
Past performance is not indicative of future returns. Investing involves risks. You may lose money. Advisory services are provided for a fee by Empower Advisor Group, LLC, EAG, a registered investment advisor with the Securities and Exchange Commission. Om Namaste.
In a way, it ends where it begins.
Very insightful.
Thank you for sharing this Red Baron with us, Linda. It's so tasty, it makes me want to share something of my own. I didn't actually read the book.
Me neither.
I watched the movie last night.
I judged it by its cover.
I haven't read a book since middle school.
I'm secretly seeing 2 other book clubs.
And I can't even read.
I'm not really Gary. He just paid me to be here. Sharing Red Baron pizza can lead to more sharing.
Again, if you are deciding in the middle of making your snack to end your own life, why are you yanking it out like that so hard? I mean...
But also, did they say the orange was sliced, or was it just, like, unwrapped and, like, put on the counter? Because, like, if she's using that same knife to cut the orange, why would she be yanking it out of the knife block? You know what I'm saying?
I do. And I don't know the answer to your question. I'm going to look it up. Okay, I can't be 100% sure, but in this photo, it does look like, the orange was cut in half with a knife. Because I can tell, like, the little white part in the middle, it's cut perpendicular to that. So there's no way that you, like, peeled it
when
that
you pull
perfectly.
it off.
So it was
that's weird.
cut with a knife. But again, even if you were using that knife, if that was the knife she was using to make her snack, why would you yank it so hard out of the knife block like that?
That's what
You would have already had it out making the snack before. But if someone killed her they're arguing,
like a rage,
or it's a random stranger, because that's a possibility. You could see them, reaching the knife block, like, and yanking
whatever's
it
like
out
the closest,
as,
just pulling it out and then
like,
going at it.
I could see if you're in an argument, you're yelling, or you're about to attack someone, you're going to grab the knife with a lot of force and do it as quickly as possible. And maybe you're reaching around somebody at a weird angle to pull this knife out, and it knocks it over. Just, again, very odd. Now, they also noted the damage to the bar latch on the door, as Sam warned them that they would. However, this damage was minimal. The side of the lock that was screwed into the door frame was completely undamaged, and the side of the latch that was screwed into the door itself had been pulled loose, pulling some of the screws out of the door, but not all of them.
Okay.
So some people say, if you were to break the door down, there would have been more damage to this latch.
Yeah.
I don't really
who's to
think
say?
so. I could see that once you get a couple of those screws out, it's going to open. But like I said, you can also very easily shut these things from the outside using string. So again, just odd. That's one of the things people point to as this wasn't a suicide or somebody faked this latch being broken. But I don't necessarily, for me, that's not like a really compelling point. Wanted to bring it up, though, in case it's compelling for you. Now, interestingly, Ellen's engagement ring, which was not found on her finger or on the counter next to the sink or anything like that, it was found on a bedside table in the bedroom. Which, if you're newly-ish engaged, you haven't gotten married yet, I would assume that you're wearing your wedding or your engagement ring all the time.
Yeah, but also, like, I mean, I don't have an engagement ring, but I do wear rings, and sometimes I'll just take them off and put them on my bedside table before I go to bed, and then I'll forget to put them on the next day. So, like, I can see that being not
that's
weird.
true.
You know what I'm saying?
That's true.
Like, that one's not as weird to me.
So, with all of this, I'm going to read you part of the investigation report that was written by investigator Stephen Olszewski. I'm doing my best. On the evidence that was discovered that day, okay? So, and again, this is not the whole thing, but it is going to be a lot that is a full quote, so bear with me here. So the location of the death is in the kitchen of the decedent's apartment located at the Venice Loft Apartments address. It is a 2-bedroom apartment on the 6th floor of the building, shared by the decedent with her fiancé, Sam Goldberg. The apartment is well kept, clean. The inside lock to the front door, a common latch/solid bar door guard, is broken with screws on the door loose, obviously forced in when in a locked position. Throughout the entire apartment, there is no evidence of a struggle. Furniture and items appear in place. Nothing is obviously missing or disturbed. There are numerous valuables present: money, keys, 3 laptop computers, one in the kitchen island that appears to be Goldberg's, one in the master bedroom suite on the floor appears to be the decedent's, as evidenced by wedding material, and one on an additional bedroom desk appears to be the decedent's work computer, as evidenced by numerous teaching materials. The decedent is a teacher. There is no note found or anything indicative of suicide on the computers or in the rest of the apartment. The only way to exit the apartment with the front doorway locked is through a rear slider leading to a patio. The patio is 6 stories high. There is snow present with no tracks or footprints, completely undisturbed. The ambient temperature inside, blah, 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 blah. We don't need all that. Now, prescription medications are recovered from a bedstand located in the master bedroom. So they talk about these prescriptions that they find in Ellen's nightstand. So there's alprazolam. I don't know. These are like the scientific names. Hold on. There's Xanax, there's Klonopin, and there is a sleeping medication that I have the name of somewhere in my script, and I will say it when I get to it because I can't think of it off the top of my head. Now, they immediately see these and they start thinking,
it's like, oh, she was depressed.
Mental health issues. But what's important to note is that they said that they looked through these laptops and nothing indicating suicide was found on these laptops. There was no note, nothing along those lines.
Like no weird Google searches.
Now I'm going to go back to the scene. So they said the decedent is on the hardwood kitchen floor, located just inside the door entrance. The decedent is found supine with her head and some of her upper body shoulders resting against the lower half of the white kitchen cabinets next to the range. Her body, starting with the head, is facing north and legs west. She's clad in a zipper-up, dark-colored shirt over top a t-shirt, gray sweatpants, underwear, and light brown Ugg boots. A pair of eyeglasses are on the floor to the right of the decedent. A white towel is grasped in her left hand. A hair tie or scrunchie is on her right wrist. There are no personal effects on the body. Upon further examination of the body, the decedent has a knife embedded in her left chest through her clothing. I'm going to pause there for a second. Well, I'm going to talk about this a little bit later on. It is so uncommon. First of all, suicide by stabbing is extremely uncommon by itself. Mm-hmm. But the majority of people who die by suicide by stabbing lift up their clothing and stab directly into the skin. Ellen was stabbed through her clothing. The knife was found stuck in her chest through her clothing. So this would be an anomaly of a situation.
Yeah.
And that's not to say it has never happened before, but that it is statistically so unlikely. Now, there are multiple stab wounds examined at the scene. At the chest where the knife is located, a few superficial group nearby, one to the upper left chest near the clavicle, 2 more at the mid-chest between and just below the breasts. Now, what's interesting about this is that neither this detective nor the person that came to the scene from the medical examiner's office in their initial reports, neither of them noted anything about the 10 stab wounds that were to the back of her neck and the back of her head. Meaning they didn't fucking look at the back of her. They only noted the stab wounds that were on the front of her body. So they obviously eventually find these stab wounds when they do the autopsy, but that just goes to show you how much effort they put into investigating this scene. They missed half of the stab wounds just because they were on the back of her body.
And she was like leaned up against the cabinets. Is this a very like viral diagram?
Yes.
Okay, I've seen this before.
Yes.
Which is insane.
posted. I posted it on our Instagram.
No. Like
recently.
before that, though.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, I've definitely seen it before, and I'm like, holy fuck. That's
This
like
is
wild.
a very, very like highly discussed case because it is so insane.
And they tried to say that she stabbed herself in the back of the head.
Yes.
7 times. 7 to 10.
10 times to the back of her body, but it was between like her upper back, the back of her neck, and the back of her head. And I'm going to go through every single stab wound and describe it to you.
Yeah, because how the fuck do you do that to yourself?
It's not to be gory, but it's to give you an idea of what this would have done to your body as these stab wounds were occurring.
Yeah.
So again, the fact that they do not know, neither the first detectives on the scene nor the medical examiner, I don't think it was the medical examiner himself, but someone that works at the medical examiner's office, neither of them noticed 10 stab wounds to her back. So it just is telling me that they weren't doing a fantastic job here.
Yeah.
And I think if it's not already become evident, it will become evident to you as we move on. They assumed this was a suicide from the get-go, and they treated it like a suicide. The entire investigation at the scene was treated as a suicide. Now, some people speculate that this was an intentional cover-up by police. Police knew that Sam or somebody did this, but they, in this theory, it's Sam. I am not saying that it was Sam.
It's alleged.
But they say Sam did this and the police went along with covering it up. And we're going to get to why they think that. I personally don't think that. I think they just fucking biffed it, dude.
Yeah.
I just think that they were led astray and they fell for it and they fell right into a trap and they did exactly what the killer wanted them to do, whoever the killer may be.
That's what sucks is that, like, I feel like a lot of these cases, they, like, get this theory in their head and they're like, oh, well, I'm not going to explore anything else then because this makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And they're like, I'm good with that.
This whole scenario, because again, if you were to see stab wounds to the back of the head and the neck, I don't think you would make the assumption that this was suicide. It does not make it impossible for this to be a suicide just because the stab wounds were to the back of her body.
But it would make you question it a little bit more, you know?
I just think you would assume it's a homicide, and then maybe once you gathered more information that pointed towards it being a suicide, then you might change your opinion.
Yeah.
But once you see stab wounds to the back of the body, I just think that your first inclination would be this is a homicide. We're going to treat it as a homicide until we get further information. But because they didn't see them, you can see it makes it more believable that this could be a suicide, in my opinion. If there were just stab wounds to the front of her body,
I could see that.
You could persuade me a little bit easier that this was a suicide.
Yeah.
He also writes, there are no defense injuries to the hands, wrists, or forearms. The right hand is closed in a loose fist. Post-mortem findings at arrival are the same. The body is mostly flaccid, meaning rigor mortis had not begun to set in, aka this just happened. You know, it hadn't been hours and hours. So the hands appear to be slightly stiff. The body is cool to the touch at the extremities and warm to touch at the torso, front and back. Lividity is inconspicuous. Findings are consistent with current position of the body. This is where I want you to really start paying attention. Blood is present on the head, in the hair, and neck. You know why there's blood there? Because there were fucking stab wounds there. But those are never mentioned.
They still didn't realize it?
The right hand has blood on it, on the front side of her shirts, along her pants and the front side, and on the top of both of her boots is blood. The right boot has blood on the sole, the blood around her... sorry, some of this is not written perfectly because I'm sure they're writing this at the scene. The blood around her is generally confined to the area of the body, on the floor underneath, and on the face of the cabinets behind her. One small blood spatter is on the cabinet to the left of the body. 2 separate drops of blood spatter are on the granite countertop above her. What that indicates to me, there's only 2 drops of blood on the countertop.
Yeah.
Is that she was below the cabinets when most of the stabbing occurred. Because otherwise there would be blood on those countertops if she was standing.
Yeah. And like, I don't know, I'm just trying to figure out how she had it on like the top of her legs, but not the bottom half. But she did have it on top of her boots.
How I picture this,
was she like squatting down? Maybe
how I picture this is someone sitting on their butt, with their legs kind of up, like their knees kind of up, and leaning their head over their knees. Like let's say you were crying or trying to catch your breath or something.
Yeah.
Like you would put your head down over your knees.
Yeah.
That's how I'm picturing this. And then when the knife is being pulled away, and I am not a blood spatter. This is speculation on my part. Okay. Complete speculation. The experts do say that they think she was in that position because of how much blood was on the front of her like upper legs.
Okay.
But I'm just trying to think, how would it get on the boots a little bit?
Yeah, that's
I'm
what I was
thinking
like-
maybe when the knife is pulled out,
and
there's
okay.
droplets because it wasn't a lot of blood. But again, that little portion about the boots, that's my speculation. That is not what the experts said. So there's a lot more to this report, but I think we kind of got through the important points. And with that, what I want to do is talk about the autopsy findings as reported in the first autopsy report, because there will be multiple autopsy reports. So they performed the autopsy the morning after Ellen's death. And this is performed by Dr. Marlon Osborne of the Philadelphia Medical Examiner's Office. And in his initial report, the manner of death is clearly stated as homicide, with the cause of death listed as multiple stab wounds. And like I said, there were 20 stab wounds, 10 to the front of her body, 10 to the back. And we are going to go through each and every one of them so you can understand in depth what this actually looks like. Because a lot of these stab wounds, to me, they're more nicks with the tip of a knife.
Yeah.
They're not stab wounds as you would picture, like the knife going, inches deep into your body. Some of them are, but a lot of them are not.
I'm trying to
which is very odd.
Yeah,
to
I'm
me.
trying to like picture this like going down. And I mean, 20 stab wounds is a lot.
It's a lot. That
you know
takes
what I'm
time.
saying? Yeah. So to me, and if they're not all going through, to me, it's like this person or whoever did this was just going so fast that they were just stabbing.
So it does get those little nicks and the amount of them that there are. I find them very confusing. Whether it's a suicide or a homicide,
Yeah.
I think they're odd.
Yeah.
I guess a suicide, you could see them as hesitation.
But
maybe
20
they're more explainable by suicide.
But
actually.
20 times? 20 times?
Yeah, so let's talk about how many were deep and how many weren't, and then we'll discuss a little bit
Yeah.
more. So before we go through each and every wound, I want to bring up a couple notable findings from this autopsy that are not really related to the wounds. So again, the first is that she had no defensive wounds. Normally in a death by stabbing, a homicide, you would see defensive wounds to like the
Their
forearms
forearms, yeah.
and the hands, because a lot of people will try and grab the knife to protect themselves or put their hands and arms over their
face.
body where they're being stabbed to protect themselves. And there were nothing was wrong stabbing wise with her hands or her arms. Okay. There is some bruising that we're going to talk about later, but there were no stab wounds to her hands or her forearms, which is very odd if this is a homicide. The second thing is, we're going to talk about the bruises right now. That was
Circle
the
back.
second thing.
Circle back quick.
So she had a bunch of bruises, and I read 11, but then they're talking about bruising clusters, that like a cluster of 3 bruises in one spot, and I don't know if they're counting that as 3 bruises or as
Or like
one.
one cluster.
So I read 11, but that could be misleading. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Now, the thing about all these bruises, there's a couple weird things. First of all, they were all to one side of her body, and they were all in different stages of healing, meaning they didn't happen during this. If there was an attack, they didn't happen like right before the stabbing or anything like that.
Okay.
They had happened on different occasions over time, and they could tell based on the healing
level
stage
of
that
it,
the
yeah.
bruises were in.
Halliday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy. Champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength Halliday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner by knockout is Halliday. Halliday, bring it on.
Revolutionize your cooking with the Tefal Infrared Air Fryer. Watch as your food crisps up through a large lighted window and delight in faster, crispier, and juicier results with no preheating thanks to Tefal's advanced infrared technology. Discover the future of cooking and bring innovation into your kitchen by visiting Tefal.com.
So there was one round bruise on her upper right arm and then one on her right lower abdomen. On the right forearm, there were 3 round bruises. On the right thigh, there was a vertical row of 3 round bruises. And lastly, above the right knee, there were 3 round bruises. And what people say is all of these bruising clusters were the same distance apart. So it almost seems like they were made with something that is like a fixed object. Now, some people speculate that the bruising, because it was in different stages of healing, that this is a sign of that she was being physically abused. And the implication that comes along with that was that Sam was abusing her. There is no evidence that Sam was abusive to her. She never told anybody. She had a psychiatrist, we'll get to it, who specifically asked about Sam, and she said only good things. There's no evidence. Some people say these bruises are evidence of abuse, and they could be.
Yeah.
But we can't say definitively that they are.
Yeah, then you can't.
But there's enough of them that it's odd.
That it's weird, and they're all the same, but in different spots. Yeah, that is really weird.
The other thing is the clusters of 3. There's 3 different spots where there's clusters of 3. What some people argue, and I have no idea how based in science this is that it could be from fingers gripping you. Like, for example,
I mean, that's where my mind first went, but always 3, and I don't know.
Think about the right upper arm. So let's say you're in an argument. She's trying to walk away. You grab her arm really hard. There's 3 bruises from your 3 fingers. And again, I'm totally just speculating here on this because your pinky isn't strong enough to form a bruise, possibly. Yeah. But then I kind of wonder, wouldn't there be one on the back side of the arm from the thumb? I don't know. But this is just one of the things that people say, well, this points to that she was being abused. We don't know that. It could be a sign of abuse, or they could be explainable, and we have no answers on what these bruises are actually from. We have no evidence to say what these are actually from.
I was going to say, I mean, I bruise super fucking easily.
I do too.
Like, my legs are covered in bruises at all times.
And I never know what they're from.
Never. Usually it's from running into something. But, like, they're not always the same. You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't always look the same. They're not always, like I don't know. The uniformity of that is strange to me.
I think it is too. And the fact that it's all on one side of her body is kind of strange too. And that's another thing that people point to. Well, maybe because someone's always going to use their dominant hand, so it's going to be on the same side of her body. But I think that's kind of a stretch of, because whether she's facing away from you or not, like, it could be different. I think the fact that they're all on the right side of her body could just be an absolute coincidence that means nothing. Yeah. That's just me. Now, like I said, Ellen never reported any sort of physical or emotional abuse by Sam to her friends, to her family, or to her psychiatrist. So keep that in mind, because I think people give too much credit to these bruises as like a surefire sign. Yeah. And I just don't think they are. So we're going to go through all the stab wounds now. It's going to be a little bit of a task for us, but it's important to know as I'm going through these that I'm reading them in no particular order except the way that they were labeled during the autopsy. So there's like stab wound A, stab wound B. But they do not know the order in which these occurred, except for the fact that the final stab wound was the one that the knife was found in.
Okay.
They don't know. Yeah. All of these stab wounds showed signs of bleeding, meaning she was alive for all of them until that final one. There are some that would have been deadly even without that final stab wound to the chest where the knife was left in. But I just want to make it very clear, we do not know what order these wounds occurred in.
Yeah.
So stab wound A was to the front of Ellen's chest and was 0.2 centimeters deep. So this is a nick.
Yeah.
Okay? A tiny little nick. Stab wound B was to the front of Ellen's chest and was also 0.2 centimeters deep. Another little nick. Stab wound C was to the right of Ellen's chest and clavicle and was 1.4 centimeters deep. So this is a little bit deeper, but not...
Still not much.
Not what you would picture a stab wound to be like.
Yeah, like some glue or a Band-Aid could fix that.
Now, also an important thing to think about when looking at these wounds is the angle of the wound. Okay? Because if you're going to stab yourself, let's say you're right-handed, you're going to do it with the right hand, and your arm is in a fixed position. So if you're stabbing your left chest with your right hand, you would think that it's kind of have an angle into the body as going right to left. So what we see here, and I'm going to give it to you up front so you can think about it as I'm talking through the details, there's no pattern to the angle in which these stab wounds are made. Some of them are directly straight in, some of them are right to left, and then some of them are left to right. And what that, to me personally, this is just my opinion, what that implies is that the arm that was doing the stabbing was not in a fixed position relative to Ellen's body, aka it was not one of her arms doing this stabbing.
Right.
Again, that is speculation. That is my opinion. This is not proved definitively by this, but I just think it's very, very odd. So
yeah, it makes sense to me.
This stab wound C that was to her chest and clavicle, 1.4 centimeters deep. The angle of this wound was right to left and slightly upward. If I don't mention the angle for some of these wounds, it's because they were pretty much just straight into the body. There was nothing notable about the angle. So stab wound D, nothing notable about the angle. This was 0.2 centimeters deep. It was a nick. Wound E was to the chest and was 10 centimeters deep. So this is a deep stab wound. This wound cut into her aortic arch and the upper lobe of her left lung, which led to over 120 milliliters of internal bleeding.
Yikes.
This wound was angled left to right and slightly downward. Wound F was to the chest, was 0.2 centimeters deep, as well as wound G. So these are more nicks. So we're up to what, like 5 nicks at least?
6. No.
Well, because we have a couple deeper
you're right.
ones.
1, 2, 3, 5.
So I think there's 5 nicks. So even though you hear 20 stab wounds, it's important to note that the majority of these are very, very shallow, like nicks, okay?
Like out of 7 of them, only 2 were like pretty deep.
Now, wound H was to the chest and was 4 centimeters deep. It punctured the chest muscles through the right 6th intercostal space, which is intercostal is the space between your ribs, and it plunged 2.3 centimeters deep into her liver. This wound was slightly left to right. Wound I was to Ellen's abdomen. It was 6 centimeters deep and broke through the skin into the abdominal wall muscles. This wound was slightly left to right. Wound J was to the back of Ellen's scalp. It doesn't say how deep it was, but it does say that it extended through the skin and the scalp. Wound K was to the back of Ellen's neck and was 0.3 centimeters deep. This one was slightly left to right. So you can see we're going back and forth between left to right, right to left, which, you could say she's using 2 different hands, but it's just odd.
Yeah.
Wound L was to the back of her neck. It was 0.2 centimeters deep, and it was slightly left to right again. Wound M was to the back of her neck, 0.3 centimeters deep, so we've got nicks. Okay, the last few have been nicks. This one was straight in. Wound N was to the back of her neck, and this one was 8 centimeters deep. This is a deep one. It was slightly left to right and upward. This wound penetrated the cranial cavity and severed cranial nerves. This wound alone was a traumatic brain injury that would have she would have bled out from this wound. So this wound, if this was the only wound she had, she would have died from this if she didn't get immediate help. She also would have had severe symptoms from this wound as soon as it was made.
I was going to say nerve damage can't really keeps you from stabbing yourself further, it does not.
And nerves in your cranial cavity.
Yeah, like that will shut your shit down real quick.
These symptoms may have included numbness, tingling, respiratory depression, neurogenic shock, and or impaired consciousness or loss of consciousness altogether. So this wound could have made her pass out.
Yeah.
And that's an important point to think about when you're thinking about the fact that she had no defensive wounds. That's something, if you believe, like me, I believe that this is not a suicide. The only other option is someone else did this to her, whoever that may be. We don't know because it hasn't been investigated as a homicide. But if you believe that this is a homicide, you do have to come up with some sort of explanation for the fact that there are no defensive wounds. So just think about that as I'm going through these stab wounds. That could be one of them. She could have lost consciousness, but they don't know that for sure. She could have remained conscious too. Now, after this wound was made, it would have made further stabbing more difficult to inflict, okay? Because you're not at 100% after you do this. No matter which of those symptoms she had, there's no way she's just operating normally from that point forward. Now, wound O was to the back of her neck. It was 3 centimeters deep and was right to left. So this is the opposite direction as the last few. Wound P was to the back of her neck, 2.1 centimeters deep, and was right to left again. Wound Q was to the back of her neck, 2 centimeters deep, and was slightly left to right. So different direction than wound P. We're going back and forth here. And again, we don't know the order in which these occurred, but they're all going different directions, which is odd if it's coming from a fixed position like her arm. Wound R was to the back of the neck, 1.9 centimeters deep, slightly left to right. Wound S was to the back of the neck, 2.1 centimeters deep, and slightly left to right. And finally, wound T is arguably the most important wound when it comes to determining whether this was a suicide or a homicide. Because this wound was also to the back of the neck, but it was 7 centimeters deep. So this is a deep wound, and it extended into the spine between the second and third vertebra, and it punctured the dura, which covers the subjacent spinal cord. If you're a doctor and I just messed that up, sorry. It covers the subjacent spinal cord. So in the autopsy report, because what do we know about if you get an injury to your spinal cord? What can that cause?
Paralysis.
Paralysis. It is a possibility.
That's crazy.
That's the point, is that after, because let's say this was the second to last wound, this went into her spine. We have to say that if she did this to herself, she stabbed herself at least one more time, because there's that stab wound to the chest that the knife was found in. We know that that's the last wound. So every other wound, we don't know the order, but we know that at least one came after it.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not an expert, but I've heard that like chest stabs, it like takes so much more effort and like,
well, because you're going through the rib cage,
yeah,
which is literally made to protect your vital organs.
So if she has like fucking cerebral nerve damage and also a stab that went right through her fucking spine, it didn't go through the spine. I guess that's an important distinction. It went into the spine. It did not, well, hold on. Let me go back to my script. Let me go back to my script, because if I try and go off the top of my head, I feel like I'm going to make it so confusing. Okay.
So in the autopsy report, there is a note under wound T's description, and it reads, quote, Dr. Lucy Rourke examined the spinal cord and concluded that there is no defect of the spinal cord, end quote. What he's saying here is they're saying this wound went into the spine between the second and third vertebra, and it punctured the part of the spine that covers the spinal cord. It's made to protect the spinal cord.
Okay, so it didn't actually hit the spinal cord.
That's what he's saying. He says, then had a specialist, which she is a neuropathologist, examine the spine to determine whether or not the spinal cord itself was punctured or cut through. And he says she examined it and concluded there was no defect to the spinal cord itself. Now, an important note about this is that even if the spinal cord was not punctured, the puncturing of the, what do they call it? The dura can cause significant issues. And we're going to get to them.
Oh, I'm sure.
But here's the interesting part, because you're like, okay, but her spinal cord wasn't punctured, right? Well,
still gotta fucking hurt though, dude. Oh my God.
Dr. Lucy Rourke Adams, again, a renowned neuropathologist, was reportedly consulted to examine a portion of Ellen's spinal cord. And then they make this note in the autopsy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So according to Dr. Marlon Osborne, the medical examiner, Dr. Rourke Adams conducted an informal, quote-unquote, curbside exam, during which she observed that while the dura mater, the protective sheath covering the spinal cord, was incised, the spinal cord itself remained intact. So by curbside exam, what they mean is they brought a portion of a spine outside of Dr. Lucy Rourke Adams' office, I presume in a jar, and had her look at it, and she said,
just
nope,
like in the
spinal
hallway.
cord's fine.
Like, hey, can you take a look at this for me real quick?
That is literally, like, they called it a curbside exam. And not they, one person, sorry. Because here, the implication of this is it suggested that Ellen retained motor function after this wound. Meaning she could have inflicted subsequent wounds and that last
herself?
wound.
Okay.
However, if the spinal cord was incised, was cut, was punctured, whatever the correct terminology is for that, if it was, that would have stopped her motor function at that point.
Yeah, immediately.
So she would not have been able to make any more stab wounds to herself after this wound. She definitely would not have been able to sink a knife into her heart after this if the spinal cord was punctured. But again, even if it wasn't.
I was going to say, even if it wasn't, that shit's got to hurt.
She's not operating properly.
Yeah.
You're still going to see effects from this on your motor functions.
Ooh.
So again, this wound could explain the lack of defensive wounds. If this was the first wound made, she couldn't fight back at that point. She couldn't put her arms up and protect herself.
Well, to me, it makes sense that it was the ones to the back of her head were first, because the one to her chest was the ending, and I don't see them going back and forth from the front to the back. You know what I'm saying? Like, to me, it sounds like they hit the back, she either fell or couldn't do anything else, and then the front.
Right. So we're operating under the assumption that the spinal cord was not severed, it wasn't punctured, whatever, but she could have still had some effects to her motor function, right?
Yeah.
So it's unlikely, but it's still possible that she could have done that last stab wound.
Yeah.
However, this is where it gets interesting. In a 2018 interview, Dr. Rourke Adams stated that she had no recollection of ever conducting such an examination. She noted the absence of any report or billing record for her services, leading her to conclude, quote, I would conclude that I did not see the specimen in question, although there is a remote possibility that it was shown to me, end quote.
She's like, I can't confirm or deny that I saw this, and...
Here's the thing, though.
What?
She is a renowned neuropathologist. She does not give medical opinions for free.
Yeah.
And that's what she says in this interview, is that she's basically like, look, I don't remember doing this. I have absolutely no record for it. And if I did look at it, I would have made them pay me for it.
Yeah.
And there would have been like a record that we billed them for this.
So they're
and
saying
there's
she
none
looked at
of
this
that.
off the record.
There is none of that. So yes, that's what she's like. I have no idea what the fuck they're talking about. There's no records that say I looked at it. I don't remember looking at it, whatever. But she's also admitting she looks at a lot of this stuff. So it is possible that her memory is failing her. But she's also saying, even if my memory is failing me, there's no record that I ever looked at it. So first of all, I just don't like any of this because somebody is either lying or really misremembering something,
and
which
not doing
freaks
their
me
job
out.
right.
So we don't know. That's the whole point is I am not convinced that we have proof that the spinal cord was not punctured in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
I am not convinced the fact that she doesn't remember, there's no record of her ever looking at this. I think there's a remote possibility that the person who performed the autopsy lied. And they lied and because he ruled it a homicide when he performed that autopsy. So in a homicide, it doesn't really matter whether or not that spinal cord was because somebody else did it.
Yeah.
So are you really going to like take all that time to go get the neuropathologist to look at it? Or are you going to finish?
Again, they're jumping to conclusions and then just half-assing the rest of the
Now,
job.
I have no proof that this man just made this up and is lying. It is possible that he did show this to her and this is all correct and that the spinal cord was not. The point is that we don't know.
Yeah.
So you can't argue that this can't be a homicide because there's no defensive wounds because there is a possible explanation for why there are no defensive wounds.
Stress me out.
Yes, correct. This is a stressful case. So, like I said, I want to stress this one more time, even though I said it 10 times. Even if the spinal cord was completely intact and had no damage to it, the damage to the dura is enough to significantly impact motor functions, though it may not paralyze function completely. But the point is, if the dura has been damaged, you are not going to be able to move properly.
Yeah.
That doesn't make it impossible for you to then keep stabbing yourself, but it makes it extremely unlikely, I guess.
Yeah.
Or at least unlikely that you're going to do a bunch of stab wounds. The likeliness that you can do that one last plunge to the heart, I don't know. Ugh. Now, like I said, the multiple directions of the wound, also odd. This is all fucking adding up to somebody else did this to her, in my humble opinion.
Mine too.
Now, Ellen's clothing and the knife were tested, but only her DNA was found on them. So you can say that this points to she killed herself.
I'm so confused. I was waiting for that too. I was like, was it only her prints on the knife?
Or someone wore gloves while they did it?
Like workout gloves maybe? Cough, cough?
I don't know.
Allegedly?
I don't think workout gloves. I don't know. Now, it's also important to note that on Ellen's face, and this one fucking, if you're not on board with how I feel about this case, you're about to be on board.
We're about to get you there.
It's also important to note that on Ellen's face, there was dried blood that had dripped horizontally across her face. So what this indicates, because you know what gravity does? It drips from up to down, okay? Not from side to side. So what this indicates is that at some point, she had been laying on her side while she was bleeding. That blood dripped across her face, dried where it was, and then she was found sitting upright. It is impossible for the position that she was found in for that blood to have dripped across her face like that. So you could argue a lot of stuff about this. You could argue that, well, maybe the blood dripped across her face, she was still alive because she bled out slowly and she moved after. But I'm like, what are the odds of that? I don't know. I don't know. But to me, this blood across her face shows you that she was moved by somebody else. That is not a fact. That is my opinion. And from as far as we can tell from the statements that Sam has made that we have access to, He claims that he never says that he moved her. Like, he claims he came in, she was sitting upright, and that's how he found her, and that's how, when the police got there, that's how they found her. He says nothing about moving her.
I was going to say, they didn't ask, like, hey, I thought you were trying to do CPR.
Now, the point, I can't answer that question because we don't know about what was said during his interviews with police. So I have no idea if I would assume that they have asked him that question, but I don't know. So all we can take is the fact that he did kind of act like when he was on the phone, like he was trying to perform CPR, which you would assume, step one, get her in a laying down position.
Yeah.
So I guess you could kind of argue that...
Like, maybe, yeah, and then he saw the knife and was like, oh, fuck, she's been stabbed.
From the investigator's first report, she was found like that, like sitting up. Yeah. So it's just weird.
Weird, yeah.
Now, despite the homicide ruling made the day after Ellen's death, it is pretty evident, in my opinion, that the scene was treated as a suicide the night of her death. The only evidence that was collected and taken, because they mention a lot of evidence in that first investigative report, but they didn't take all of it. The only things they took were her medications, which were Xanax, Klonopin, and Ambien. And the fact that they took these medications, combined with the following circumstances, I think led the police to assume that this scene was a suicide. And they therefore did not treat it like a crime scene, and they did not preserve the scene properly. So the fact that the room was locked from the inside, they think, okay, well, it's locked from the inside. You can't get out once you lock it from the inside.
Yeah.
Again, dumb argument. You can do it with a string from the outside. That's just me. The snow on the balcony was undisturbed, so no one came in or out on that balcony, and it's also on the 6th floor. So that would be really, I just feel like someone would have noticed someone
Bond shit, yeah.
Scaling up the side of the building.
Yeah.
So there were no signs of an intruder. There were no clear signs of defensive wounds, no evidence of a struggle in the apartment. Nothing was missing. No intruders were recorded on the apartment security cameras. So they look at this and they're saying stab wounds. They're apparently, allegedly, because I don't know for sure, but only at least writing down on their reports the stab wounds to the front of her body. But they're also noting that she's struggling with anxiety. She's been on these medications, and she had obviously sought out a psychiatrist for help. They're seeing mental health issues. And the month before her death, which, of course, they don't know this that night, but after this night, they're making this assumption they're not looking for evidence of a homicide, and then they're getting more evidence that kind of points to mental health struggles. So the month before Ellen's death, in December of 2010, friends and family began to notice Ellen growing anxious. At one point, she even asked her parents if she could move back in with them, which was concerning because they lived 2 hours away from Philadelphia. And also, Ellen was living with her fiancé, who she was about to marry.
That seems like a step back, you know?
This is another thing that people point to as, why did she want to move out of her apartment with Sam? Like, something was wrong in this relationship. And I feel very certain that this relationship, something was wrong. And that we're going to see more
100%.
signs of that. Whether or not he was abusing her physically, I think there were signs that this relationship, Ellen wasn't having doubts about it.
Yep.
So after deciding not to move in with her parents, Ellen reached out to her cousin that lived in Philadelphia, and she asked the cousin if she can stay with him. The cousin said yes and asked Ellen if Sam would be coming too. But but Ellen never responds after this.
Oh.
Weird. Now, Ellen began seeing this psychiatrist, Dr. Ellen Berman, for help. She told Dr. Berman that she hated her job and that she was having all of this anxiety, and it was really mostly just surrounding her job. When Dr. Berman asked Ellen about her relationship, she says that Ellen smiled sweetly and said nothing but good things about Sam. Ellen was initially prescribed Ambien for sleep and Klonopin for the anxiety. And at first, she reported to friends and family that the medications were not helping her. But Dr. Berman later switched Ellen from Klonopin to Xanax instead, after which Ellen told her family that she was feeling a lot better. So I want to kind of go over a little bit of this timeline. So January 12th, 2011, so this is just a few weeks before her death, Ellen sees Dr. Berman again. And Dr. Berman's notes painted a picture of a woman that was struggling. She wrote, quote, "Wants things in control, my whole life hard worker, anxious, not sleeping, job sucks," end quote. These are like her handwritten notes from the session. So January 16th is when Ellen made the final entry in her journal where she documented her medication use. This is a journal that she kept in her purse. So she documented some changes in her medication. January 17th, during another session with Dr. Berman, Ellen voiced her frustrations. She said she wants to quit, but her mom and fiance don't want her to. Quit her job is what she's referring to. Not the
I was going to say the
psychiatrist.
medication. Okay.
Dr. Berman noted that Ellen could leave her teaching contract with 2 weeks' notice, but whenever she tried to focus on, like, hey, are you going to leave your job, Ellen kind of started to spiral elsewhere.
She just didn't want to talk about it, yeah.
Right. Now, despite the distress that Ellen seemed to be in, Berman wrote on this note from January 17th, so less than 10 days before her death, not suicidal. January 19th, this is when they start to see some sort of breakthrough. When Ellen comes in that day, she tells Dr. Berman that she feels 75% better. And she just felt like she couldn't get all the way till June, like when school let out, and she just needed something to help her get to June so she could kind of figure out what she was going to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, but she said, way better, feels 75% better. Okay? She's on an upswing.
Mm-hmm.
So you're telling me she felt 75% better and then 9 days later she killed herself. It is possible.
Yeah.
It's not impossible, but we're seeing signs pointing to the fact that she was just experiencing some anxiety about her job and the doctor was helping her.
Mm-hmm.
January 22nd, this is when Ellen mailed out her save the dates for her wedding. So I was wrong. It wasn't the day. So because she died on the 26th. So this is 4 days earlier.
Okay.
That same day, she helped a close friend shop for a bridesmaid's dress. So the whole point is she's planning for things ahead. Again,
yeah.
I personally don't think this means that much. I think people do this and then they commit suicide. That happens.
Yeah.
But so as they're shopping, though, Ellen kind of broke down while they're picking out this dress. She started crying to her friend, and she kind of told her friend, like, I'm so sorry. I know I'm not being myself. I'll get it together. So you could say multiple things about this. You could say, okay, so she wasn't doing as well as she was saying.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could say something about shopping for the wedding made her upset.
Mm-hmm.
You could point either direction. And with that, we are going to pause for today because, of course, I thought this was going to be 2 parts and it's probably going to be 50. But
Every
we're
time.
almost 2 hours in and we're not even through what I had written for part 1. Unless I forgot to put a line where part 2 is supposed to start. I don't know.
That would be so funny.
But we're pausing, and there's going to be another episode, and I have no idea how many parts this is going to be, but look at the episode
At least
title.
2 parts.
At least 2 parts. And honestly, damn, I should have sometimes I'm mad at myself because I'm like, I did, 5 episodes worth of work, and then I just made them less episodes and wait really long. And why do I do this to myself? But I do for some reason every single time. But with that, me and Emily are going to continue recording, even though it's been about 2 hours.
We sure are.
Neither of us, to be honest, is really happy about it. But
it's sneaking up on dinner time, so
we're playing catch up.
Yes.
So I'm not going to ramble on for too long. I'm just going to say bye, and we'll see you in the next episode. We'll be back.
TTYL.
TTYL.
Bye.
Now, if you guys love the pod, make sure you're following us wherever you're listening so you don't miss out on any future episodes.
And while you're at it, we'd be forever in your debt if you had left us a 5-star rating.
For more content from us, you can follow us on Instagram and TikTok. Both are at A Trial by Podcast.
You can also follow us on our Facebook and join our Facebook group.
You can shop our merch by clicking the link in the show notes or visiting our website, atrialbypodcast.com.
A Trial by Podcast is a fully independent podcast. If you'd like to help support us, you can do so by donating through the link in our show notes.
The site we use for this is called Buy Me a Coffee, but don't worry, your donations will never be used for coffee or frivolous things, only for expenses related to running and growing the podcast. So thank you guys for your support.
Thank y'all. Huzzah.
Huzzah.